Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Junkyard Digs. This week we are wrapping things up on our 77 Oldsmobile Cutlass S and getting it out of the doors so we can finally get working on some other projects here at the shop. Let's get going. So we're going to pick up right where we left off. This is our fuel tank, and there's the rest of our fuel system. We're going to get all that installed, flush it out, and then we're going to finish up. I got to do a little more bracketry and springs and stuff on the carburetor, rebuild the power steering pump, get that guy in here, button up everything here. At that point she'll be good to go. Take it out here, burn some tires at the ground, and then end the video with a little bit of a surprise. These last two videos haven't been normal revival videos, and if you guys have been a bit bored by them, I'm sorry about that. But while this car is here and prevalent on the channel, I want to get it done. I want to do everything I can to get this sucker good to go. So come next spring or summer when I'm ready to drive it again, turn the key, go to a car show. So we got a tank, straps, seal and cap, hardware for the straps, and a new sending unit. Oh, okay. Well, never mind. I guess I didn't order that. But a new fuel level sending unit with a return. Huh, sweet. I must have ordered the return one for future use. We got all this for $250 from Summit Racing. Not sponsored or anything. I'm just saying that was really impressive that I was able to get the entire tank system for $250. I love catalog cars. So since this car is so good, I'm actually going to go the extra mile and scrape off all the loose undercoating above the tank area and come in with some Rust-Oleum rust converter and seal everything up, because this metal in here is like pristine, and it's not going to stay that way forever unless it gets treated, because it's been off the road, and that's why it's so good. And now it's going back on the road, back into the elements. So I need to reseal it in hopes to keep all this as good as I can. So I'm going to go through this trunk area, do the proper preparation, and then hit everything with the rust converter, so that above the tank, where you don't often get and you can never ever wash, has a shot at staying solid for that much longer. The other thing is, all this loose undercoating is just going to harbor moisture above it if you drive down the road when it's raining, so away she goes. Okay, there it is. It's kind of ugly because of all the undercoating that's still on the frame, but hey, it's protected, so that's what counts on this car. And again, above that tank area is a crucial spot to keep solid if it's still solid, because you can never wash it out when gravel and rocks and shit get up there. So, without further ado, I'm going to pop these bolts, get these old straps out of here, get this new tank hung, and start hooking up fuel lines and stuff. Cut the old lines off, get the tank in. Here we go. There we go. In you go, little buddy. Have a good life. Hopefully never see you again. A few whacks this way. A few whacks that way. And she'll be in. Alright, there we go. Let's give this car a tank. And speaking of giving tanks, I want to say thank you to all of those. Okay, I'm done, I'm sorry. I want to say thank you to all of those of you who wished Luke, Thunderhead 289, a happy wedding, because he got married this weekend. And then I want to promptly ask all of you who wished myself or Junkyard Mook congratulations on our wedding. What the hell's going on here? We didn't get married. Okay, let's get this tank in. This might suck a bit because the rods are not pre-bent, so here we go. Trying not to scratch it up. Literally not going to. Oh, so many things have to happen at once. This is a nightmare. Do I install fuel tanks wrong? Do I do it out of order? Is it like straps last? Or are you supposed to have like friends that will help you, or a floor door jack or something. Heck off. Cursed you, exhaust. Always in my way. Never working. Always falling off. Ow. Why must you do this to me? I know the car's running. I know you don't want to go in, but you have to. Oh, you're... So I think I missed a bit of rust and undercoating, but I got it now. Ta-da! It's just that easy, kids. So to answer my question earlier, am I installing tanks wrong? The answer is yes. Don't tighten these. Just stick the strap in here, and then do the tank, and then come back and tighten these. Because these assholes up front are a frickin' nightmare to get in when the strap isn't bent. I've got all new hose ends up here, everything's hooked up, the tank is good to go. I did, however, inadvertently plan to run a return line, I guess, because I got the sender with a return line, and if you remember, we have a pump with a return line. So at some point I'll get some, looks like 1/4-inch hose, and just string that along the frame and plug that in. Okay, there it is. Tank done. Again, I actually totally forgot to plug in the fuel level sensor wire. So I had to completely take the tank back out of the car and then plug that in and redo everything. So it's finally in. But on top of that, we have a return line now. I went and got 16 feet of 1/4-inch line, and she's all hooked up. So now this return pump that I got for this car can actually return to the tank. And that will help with underhood heat. When your vehicle becomes warm, the fuel in your carburetor will also become warm, and it will become more volatile when it gets hot, especially on hot days or when you're just idling through town, especially after a startup. What you can do is run a return line for your fuel system. Ultimately, you return right after the carburetor with an electric pump so you can flush fuel through all the fuel system all the time, even when the car's not running. This is what GM did in the 70s, and it actually works pretty okay as well. It's better than just deadheading, which is what most cars are. It will return fuel from the pump back and keep this circulating to cool off fuel to here. Whereas usually, if it's deadheaded, this gets warm, all this gets warm, this gets warm, and then a few feet down the line near the engine will even get warm. And then you're just going to try to run on hot fuel for 6 minutes, and it's just going to be a big lean mess. So now that that's hooked up, it can recirculate from the pump itself back to the tank and get cold fuel up here for hot starts. Alright, what's next? Oh, new fuel filter down there. Got it just sitting there for now. But I found the old one, and I noticed that it is like a good 3 ounces, 4 ounces heavier, and it's dry. So I want to cut this open and see what's going on inside. Okay, here we go. This already all fell out just while I was cutting it open. Oh my gosh. How did this car run? Like, look at that. That is an amount of crap. Oh, this brings up a good point about filters. When people put 3 or 4 in a row, it doesn't make any sense. Because the first one has the same micron rating as the second and third. So if it's not going to get to the first one, it's never going to get to the second or third, which would filter the same size particles. Now, if you staggered them, say a 30 micron, 20 micron, 10 micron, then 3 filters in a line would make sense. But for all those guys I see out there putting 3 fuel filters in a line, like, that's not doing you anything unless you plan to just take one off and throw it away and then shorten the line down each time, just for when you're driving down the road and you just go zinc, now there's only 2, zinc, now there's only 1. For speed and efficiency, yeah, that makes sense, but running 3 in a line is not going to filter anything more than a single one will. Okay, so our fuel system is done. It's time to move on to this power steering pump. With that being said, I'm actually not going to video how to do this, because I don't know how to do it, because I've never done it. So I'm going to take this time to learn, then maybe in a future episode when I know what I'm doing, I will teach you guys a few pointers or tips or some tech on power steering pumps. If you can't tell, I only like talking about stuff I have a lot of knowledge in, so I'm going to draw the line here, and we'll be back when this sucker's done. What the hell? Nah, I'm just kidding. I actually know what this is. I went to college for this stuff, you know? Yeah, hydrostatics, engineering, blah, blah, blah. This right here is a vane pump,
What goes on in here is as the centrifugal force of spinning pushes these veins out right here, ready? Whoop! They form a seal with this outside oval shape and force fluid in and out of their respective directions. And then as the pump needs to freewheel, the fluid is able to push these back in and they will not pump. La-di-da-di-da. It's pretty cool. I'm going to be stupid careful in getting all these out and making sure not to lose them in this giant mess. Be better than me. Have a cleaner workspace. Okay, it's the next morning. Our power steering pump has been rebuilt and totally installed, minus the pulley, which is floating around somewhere in this pile of parts. I have stuff everywhere at this point, so I'm going to run over to O'Reilly's and get what I need to install that doohickey McGee spinny McBobber thing on the front of that, and then we will wrap up the carburetor, put the radiator in, and this sucker's good to go. As far as rebuilding that pump goes, I learned it's not that bad. It's definitely something you guys can do at home. I should probably mention though that I didn't really rebuild it more than I just resealed it. It's got all new seals in it. Basic tools, a couple wrenches, screwdriver, hammer. You can get it done with a block of wood on the bench. So tons of YouTube videos on how to do that. It was not that hard. If you need to do it, just look it up. Okay, everything here is buttoned up. I got the belts on, thermostat hose is on, thermostat's resealed. The accessories are done. Now we're going to move on to the radiator itself. As you remember, the old radiator was getting a little rotten down here in the bottom. It still held coolant just fine, but it was an old copper 2-core. So we went ahead and hopped on eBay and got us a aluminum radiator. This is a 3-core full aluminum radiator, apparently from Champion Cooling Systems. I've ran just cheap eBay aluminum radiators in multiple cars now, 3 or 4 of them, and I have never had a problem. They've given me nothing but good times and cool temps, so I love them. Beautiful. Like a glove. Okay, due to time constraints and the fact that no one has parts in town, I had to order a upper radiator hose and a new fan clutch online, and they're not going to be here for a few days. So I'm going to put this back together for now so we can get this thing out of the shop and get on to bigger and better things. I will come back and replace these, worry not. Nice. Bam. Cooling system, done. Alright, we got a bottle of concentrate from O'Reilly's. This is all they had in stock, but I'm okay with it because Peak is pretty good stuff. I'm not sponsored or anything, I'm just saying that. Call me. You definitely want to make sure to spill it everywhere so that when it gets to the point of checking for leaks, there's just fluid everywhere already and you don't know if it's leaks. Okay, now for a jug of water. Alright, there it is. Radiator is on and full. The throttle is hooked up. A little bit of custom bracketry that turned out pretty well. All of our initial settings for our carburetor have been done. Now I'm going to see how this runs straight out of the box and then make some changes as we go. But speaking of carburetors, there are a few things I want to note from the last video that I need to talk about. Okay, so a lot of people got upset that I threw this in the trash last time. I didn't. I'm not stupid. I know how much Quadrajet people value original Quadrajets. So this is actually going to stay with the car. Don't worry. Next thing, I don't know how many people said in the comments, they just got angry and said, that guy doesn't know how Quadrajet works. And then they never gave any explanation how it works. They just said, he doesn't know how it works. Like, good job. You guys did a lot there. So, a quick rundown of the basics of how a Quadrajet works. Okay, we're going to start off with this. This is your air door. This right here is what allows you to put an 800 CFM carburetor on a 350. This is controlled primarily by the choke. Unless the choke is open, the air door will not open. Choke open, air door open. Choke closed, air door is locked. So your choke is of course controlled by your engine temperature. And I did see a couple people say this in the comments. Your choke, like I said, controls your air doors. And if you change thermostats and stuff in a car, on some cars they can be a little more touchy, Your choke will, of course, not open at the right time because it expects a higher temp, and this needs to be adjusted, and it will hold your secondary doors closed. Now, what opens these is the airspeed below the carburetor. As you can see, I can open the secondaries. No, I can't. That's what was stuck. I can open the secondaries, but you can't see through because the air doors are not open. Hey, there I am. Now, what the air door does in this case is if the engine does not need this amount of air, it will pull as hard as it can and only open the air doors to here, per se, or here. But if an engine only needs 600 CFM, because that's all it can pull, this is all the farther your secondaries are going to open. And this is what gives you that deep sound of the secondaries on a quadjet as the air cavitates around these. As these come open, notice right here. Watch this guy move. See that? That is the enrichment circuit. So instead of having a power valve, such as a Holley that is operated off a vacuum level, these again are operated off of airspeed through the carburetor. And as that rises, the cam pulls these needles out of the jets. This is very similar to the technique that Edelbrock uses with metering rods. Now there's a bunch of tuning stuff in and among quadrajets that I'm not going to get into. I just want to show you guys that I do know what I'm talking about here. I'm not just some young kid saying, blah, quadrajets suck. These aren't bad carbs. They're not my favorite carb, but they are an option for a carburetor. Spread bore, honestly, pretty decent idea. The best thing about spread bore is the tiny front primaries. They're very forgiving to carburetor tuning, and they're very small, which provides for great fuel efficiency. You will see pretty decent fuel efficiency out of a quadrajet because you're driving around on these all day, and even if you get into your secondaries mechanically, that air door might not open because you don't have the airspeed and vacuum through the carb to open it, so you just stay on primaries. Last thing I want to mention, the whole rant I went on in the last video was not about these carburetors. It was simply about carb sizing. Carburetor sizing on an engine is the thing I see screwed up the most. My whole point of that was don't put a huge carb on a car. And the reason that the older guys who run these do that the most, or suggest the young kids they should put an 850 on it, is because these were all big carbs because of that secondary air door. They didn't pull their actual rated vacuum until maybe on the very top end when they could actually move that, then they might pull 5, 6, 7, 800 CFM. Down low, they didn't touch it. Whereas these, a mechanical carburetor or a Holley, it will open to 6, 7, 8, 900 CFM, whatever its rated volume is, mechanically. So even if it doesn't need that much air, you're going to give it that much throttle, and then it doesn't know what to do because it doesn't have the vacuum signal. So the whole point of that rant was not to make people angry. It was to say, hey, don't put a massive carburetor on your car because you're going to have a bad time. Moral of the story, don't be the stubborn old guy that when some young kid just starting out is having troubles with this carbureted car, you just disgrace him for not knowing anything till the point he's like, well, this is dumb. And then he throws a carburetor in a trash can and go buys something with an LS or fuel injection and then talks crap on carburetors. The reason those people exist is because someone put them down at some point. Help them out. Teach them everything you know. Give them the tools to succeed in life. Okay, I'm going to step off of my soapbox and finish this video. Everything is done. I'm going to put fuel in the tank and we're going to crank this over and see if this car runs. Let's do it.
Heck yeah.
You stinky derp.
Kevin's got gas.
Dude.
I do.
So seeing that our entire fuel system, besides the tank itself, is totally empty, we're going to have to crank on this for a bit. So I'm just going to feed it some brake cleaner to speed up the process and hope there's no holes in the lines or anything that we have an air leak. Go ahead, Mook. Stuff everywhere. Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, I forgot to put the lid on. Okay, let's do it again. It fed itself pretty quick. Go ahead. That sounds so much smoother. Like, wow. Now that we have a new car, some of our initial settings were different from the leaky quadrajet. So I'm going to put a timing light on and see what our initial timing is at now, that our RPM might be different. About 13 degrees initial, I'm okay with that. It'll do. We're looking at a very steady 16 inches. I'm going to move our mixer screws around and see if we can get that needle to come up a little higher. Okay, I don't know what's going on, but our RPMs are running away on me. Okay, this is a good learning experience. So, Mook just saw the temp spike.
Climbing.
Take it.
The temp is climbing.
So what's actually happening right now is there's a pocket of air right in front of this sensor right here. Right here is a pocket of air right now. And that air becomes superheated when it's in an engine block with hot liquid around it. So if you ever see your temp go dink and then drop back down, a bubble passed through, and that means you're low on coolant. And I do know I'm low on coolant, so I'm gonna try this without burning myself here or blowing my hand off. Don't do this at home, kids. Oh yeah, listen, it's angry. Heckin' radiator's empty. Heck. Alright, we'll get this topped off. But yeah, there's an opportune time to show you what happens when a superheated air pocket from low coolant passes by your temp sensor. It goes dink and it comes back. Alright, radiator's full. A couple things I should point out. Make sure this is tight. This was like finger tight when I got it. And it is an O-ring, so you don't want to smash it. But I think it should have been tighter than it was because it was dripping. Another thing I should probably point out, on the back of these carburetors, and Holly's did the same, a lot of people forget this. Right there, that little black guy, that is a plug for the brake booster. If you need a brake booster, you'll remember, because you'll be like, oh hey, there's nowhere to plug it in. But if it's hard lines like this one, you're going to put your carb on and be like, what is this massive vacuum leak? That's what it is. So yeah, heads up on that. Go ahead and fire it. Let's watch that gauge drop. What I did there was trick the car into thinking that the choke was all the way open and it needed to open the secondaries by manually opening the choke. And when I slapped it all the way open, here you go, brum, brum, brum. That's because, and the air door is the only reason it didn't stall and pop. What it's doing there, it has way too much air demand and not the airspeed of being under load. A car sitting here revving is going to behave entirely different from a car actually driving around. Like, not even comparable, honestly. People will be here and people will be sitting here revving their stuff like, yeah, it revs out great. And then they try to drive it and it pings, it spits, it pops, it stumbles. You need a tune for when you're under load. That's what those air doors are so good for, is coming into the load so smooth. I'm pretty impressed with that carburetor. It's pretty good. I got some learning to do, but I like it. Also, I just realized I never hooked the choke up. Like, I never put power to it. That's why it's being so weird. Rock solid. That's pretty good for being a C's motor. Runs pretty decent. Still got a little weird things here and there, but okay, Mook.
I have a spotlight. And all I have to say is booger scope. Booger scope time!
Alright, let's go home. Come back tomorrow and drive this sucker.
Yeah!
Definitely not running right. I'm having to give it a lot of fuel in the mixer screws, and then the idle comes way up before it wants to say you're happy. So I think we have a vacuum leak somewhere I haven't found yet. We'll look around. Back in there we go. Sure not to spill fuel on the hot engine. No, it wasn't this one. It was the lower one I felt was leaking. Ah yes, right hither. Why, I would leak too if I was that. And it's not because of anything I did to the intake. It's just because of the way the gasket is and the way the intake is. Well, this doesn't help. These numbers cast right here. That's probably the other problem, is that there's nothing on this side. Maybe I can JB weld this flat, and probably likewise up here. Yeah, that might do it. Alright, away we go.
Yeah.
So, the match between this and this guy, and this and the intake, was absolutely trash, and I don't know why I ever expected it to seal in the first place. Like, look how thin this area is. On this side it's okay. It's not the best, but on the other side it was, well, I mean, you can see the imprint there. It was horrible. It was like 1/4 inch. It was hopeless. So I found a square bore gasket that fits this much better. Lots of meat all the way around. No massive overhang in the back for stuff to fall in and eventually rip out. And it fits the intake 1,000 times better. So I've traced the bottom of this on here, and I'm going through with my newly discovered method of using a Dykes and clipping this to the shape I need. This works 1,000 times better than trying to use a razor blade and inevitably cutting my finger off or something. So we're going to get this cut up, get that carburetor back on, and it should run a lot better now that it doesn't have a vacuum leak the size of Oregon. That'll do her. Looks pretty good. Let's go put it on. As you can see, it's pretty thin on these edges. Part of that was me trimming the intake back, but this part back here was not me. So it's just how it do be, you know. Now we've got lots of sealing surface in this back piece, looking good. And I filled these holes with JB welds, so now this whole thing can be a sealing surface instead of these two stupid thin bridges that would have never worked. Now I know why they were full of RTV when I got it. I think this came off that Firebird I owned for like a month. By the way, if you're wondering, that thing's gone. It was a rusty pile of junk. Right after I cut the video, I went to vacuum out the windshield tray up here, and I grabbed the windshield, and it came out with my hand, and I saw the ground, and I went, oh. And then I sold it. Someday I'll get another one. If anyone has a nice 73 Firebird with a dual snorkel hood, let me know. Especially if you're down south. Okay, get that sucker bolted on and try this again. We're gonna fire up the car. I'm gonna watch my vacuum gauge, and we're gonna dial this thing in. Ready?
Yes.
I just remembered I never hooked up the fuel pump. I was like, man, that fired right off for having no fuel. And then a light bulb in my head went, wait, the fuel. Now we're okay. Everything's fine. No one say anything. I didn't almost burn to the ground. I remembered it. Alright, we'll let that dry off a little bit and try this with less death this time. Please don't catch on fire. That's a way better idle. Alright, I'm watching my needle right here. I'm going to turn these until they get as high as it can. Still rising. Clear it out. Oh, a little more still. It's running way better now. Ah, that's hurting it. We want to go the other way. Alright, seems to be where we want to go. I got the highest vacuum reading right there. She's running 1,000 times better. It's not shaking all over the place anymore. I think we're good to go. So much better. It's a little rich, I can smell it.
Yeah.
It needs a little tuning, but oh, just crisp. We'll do it. That's clean. I mean, it's got like no bottom end. It might need a little more initial timing, but that's pretty good. I'm impressed. Straight out of the box. It can use some tuning, but for most people, they wouldn't even know anything was wrong. Slap it on, be done. The ABS 2 is pretty good. What do you say we go put some gas in it? Head to the park. Go for a cruise.
Yes.
Let's do it. Alright, we are fueled up. Gauge is working. Temperature is not even leaving 160 now. Just that 3-core aluminum radiator makes the biggest difference, I tell you guys. The exhaust tone's totally different. It's not spitting and popping trying to drive down the road. I've got great throttle response. This is feeling good. Let's go see some fall colors. Alright, Mook, we made it. Ledges State Park, Boone, Iowa. We've got a beautiful view. The fall colors are coming in. And we got the Goldsmobile looking nice and pretty. Matches these trees almost perfect. So what do you say we take a couple laps through the park? Go check it out.
Yes.
Tell you what, Mook, that might be the prettiest ending we've ever had to a video.
It is so pretty.
Actually, I can't quite end the video here because there's one more surprise we have to give.
Oh yeah.
So to wrap everything up, the epic video series that has been the Cutlass Survival, I figured there's only one way to do it. Dad happened to be coming through town on the way back from a work trip. We had some other people here, so we decided to host a little party. And, of course, on top of that, Dad, come here please. For everything you've taught me in life, and got me this far to the point I am, I want to give you this car.
Why?
Because you put a lot of sweat and work into it already to make it look like it does already.
I think you guys put more sweat in it.
I don't have room for any more cars. You have to take
Yeah,
this.
I did,
I've decided to give this car to my dad because he's been telling me for years he wants a 70 to 72 Cutlass S. And I've seen him looking for them. And I decided there's no way you're going to find a more solid survivor than this. And he already likes the car a bunch. So, Dad, thank you very much. You're going to take a lot better care of it than I will. I'll do something dumb and put headers on it and ruin the classic vintage that it already is.
You inherit it back, you know.
Yeah. This will not be the end of the Cutlass here on YouTube. It will be back. I'm sure we'll have some more body work for it in the future. But for this series today, we're going to end it here with one last cruise back over the ledges of the sunset with this and the F100. Alright, so we will see you guys next time on Junkyard Digs. Make sure you subscribe here to the channel. What are you guys doing? Subscribe to Junkyard Mook, Thunderhead 289, McCool, Classic Wrestling 429, Deboss Garage, Junkyard Garage, and Cars and Cameras.
And Dr. Bob.
And Dr. Bob.
Dr. Olds.
We'll see you guys next week. Peace.
Goodbye!